All right, welcome everyone. I am Kelsey Griffey. I'm with BLM Nevada at the state office in Reno as the fire mitigation and trespass state lead. Today, I've invited people to learn more about funding opportunities available for fire mitigation. I know there's been quite a bit of confusion about what's available, who can apply, what type of projects, and BLM has things, Forest Service has opportunities, and NDF is also getting into the mix, helping everyone get to a fire adapted position in Nevada. So today I will talk about the BLM opportunity, and then Dennis from the Forest Service will introduce himself and speak on the Forest Service opportunities. And then Kelly from NDF will talk about how NDF can assist. At the end, we'll have a question and answer opportunity. But as we go through, please drop any questions you have in the chat, and we'll try and weave those in as we're presenting. But if we don't get to it while we're in our zone, we will go back and make sure everything gets addressed at the end. This will be recorded and we'll share it with our partners too, who weren't able to join us this morning. So a little bit of background of part of why we're doing this, why there's a lot of opportunities happening more than before, it seems, is foundation of it all comes from the National Cohesive Wildland Fire Management Strategy, which is a collaborative between all stakeholders to achieve resilient landscapes, fire adapted communities, and safe and effective wildfire response. So it's really all of our goal here from the state and federal agencies that we're trying to achieve. And then in the last year, over a year now, the bipartisan infrastructure law passed, and this provided a lot of funding for wildland fire management, specifically quite a bit towards fuels. The law provides $878 million over 5 years to plan and implement fuels management. And there's a lot of other things attached to that bill, but we're focusing really on the fuels management side. And then that ties back to the cohesive strategy of, well, with that fuels management, to do something to really create any sort of landscape scale across multiple agencies. We want to assist the communities around us to become more fire adapted and resilient. And because of a lot of that, we at the BLM developed the Community Fire Assistance Program back in 2001. And this is really our branch of that cohesive strategy to do work with communities. So we are using our bill funding to help fund more of our community assistance efforts, which supports mitigation, education, and any sort of like fuels treatment type activities with our partners, especially any cooperating agencies. So that could be state, local, and non-government organizations and other stakeholders to help us achieve a fire adapted communities. And if you want to learn a little bit more about the BLM's program, there's a short video on here and it won't let me do the link. Okay, well, you can check that out online. Just keep moving. So our community assistance funding opportunity here in Nevada from BLM is this opportunity, which has the number up there, L23AS00175 for this fiscal year. And I'll just throw that over in the chat because this is what you'll be searching for. And I have a link too. So this opportunity is available on grants.gov. And just flew as of January 30th, and it closes March 31st. And so that's why we wanted to have this Zoom meeting to discuss it, because that's not a lot of time to get all of your ducks in a row. So when you apply, there'll be multiple documents that you have to put in for a proposal and budget, etc. But this opportunity right now from BLM this year is that we've allocated at least 500,000 in fiscal year 23 funds, but the opportunity to go higher is dependent on applications. On grants.gov, it says the minimum is 250,000 for an award, but it can be less. That's just really a range. We are looking to fund multiple agreements, and these agreements can be for 1 to 5 years. Key to the BLM opportunity is we do not require a cost share. We do not require a current CWPP. So that opens up the opportunity for a lot more people. If you need any application assistance, this is where I am not the expert on grant applications. That would be Michelle, and her contact information is at the bottom of this slide. And I also dropped it in the chat, and she can help you with a lot of those questions. She also should be on this Zoom and can help answer some questions at the end too. So let's get into a little more detail of what we're looking at. So people that can apply are all of these listed here. So state governments, county, city, the NGOs, tribes, not many different types of nonprofits and private institutions. The individuals and for-profit organizations are ineligible to apply for this award, or anyone that would be using crews under the Public Land Corps Act. So those youth conservation type programs, Conservation Corps. So our goal with this funding opportunity is to accomplish fuels management activities on federal and non-federal land. Primarily what I will be looking at when reviewing the applications is non-federal land. We would like to see a lot accomplished on non-federal acres. Develop and implement fire education training and/or community action plans programs. That's always a bonus if you add that into your proposal. Conduct a community wildfire protection plan. So this is supportive of helping fund CWPPs. Expand community capability to enhance local employment opportunities, and develop and implement short and long-term monitoring and maintenance plans for hazardous fuels reduction. So to have kind of a long-term vision for the work that is being done, not just necessarily one and done. Like I mentioned, these are just a few of the basics that will be required for the application. That you'll have to fill out a project summary, a narrative, and a budget narrative, and you will have to get signed up in sam.gov to have a UIE, an identifier. But those are all things getting more into the nitty-gritties of the application process, which Michelle can definitely help walk you through if you're struggling with some of the grants applying forms. So some examples of what we're looking for. Host a Junk the Juniper event. So providing green waste removal, chipping to communities that have high fire risk. Identify high fire risk communities and contract provide treatments to remove that vegetation on private property. Treatments that protect important infrastructure. An example that I've done on a past agreement was fire retardant wraps on power poles, but this could be something in regards to protecting comms, communication, towers, or other important infrastructure. Trying to give a couple examples. CWPP updates, like we talked about, those community wildfire protection plans, herbicide applications with seeding and planting of less flammable species to restore rangelands, specifically, break the fire cheatgrass cycle. And then kind of the bread and butter of what a lot of agreements are is implementing fuel breaks around communities at risk from wildfire, which usually includes mowing along roads. This is pretty critical for us in Nevada since our #1 cause comes from roadside starts. So any vehicle type fires along the roadsides, this can be very beneficial. Connecting multiple agency fuel breaks together. So as BLM works implementing fuel breaks, a lot of times there are gaps because of other land ownership. And so to connect those dots so that we have something true that we can truly stand by as a strong fuel break across the landscape. And then this, another unique idea that has been done by communities is putting in a green belt instead of just mowing around the community, putting in something that the public would enjoy through recreation by putting in like a hard asphalt path around the community, and then putting in more fire resilient plants or mowing along that, but providing a walking path. So always looking for some creative ideas of how we become fire resilient and have these truly, fire adapted communities that people find beautiful and enjoyable to live in too. So ways that you can rise to the top with your application is anything that has to do with wildland urban interface. Will we work in your communities where BLM managed public lands pose a threat to the community or the community poses a threat to BLM? Treatments on non-federal land, we're really looking for that. BLM is doing a really incredible job in Nevada with their fuels program. And so now we want our neighbors to have the opportunity to connect in with that and do similar work. Demonstrate a cost-effective approach to treating hazardous fuels. Of course, we have to think about best bang for our buck and projects that will mitigate the effects of human-caused fires, roadside starts, target shooting, or other recreational activities. Like I mentioned, in Nevada, our #1 cause comes from roadside starts, that vehicle equipment type fire cause, and then we've had a lot of target shooting in our area too in the last 10 years. We would prefer for the BLM application that you rent equipment instead of purchasing equipment. It just makes things a bit cleaner in the overall life of the agreement. We don't have to work through depreciation requirements then, so that you truly own it at the end of the agreement and it doesn't end up back with BLM. So we like renting of equipment. We are supportive in your application if you put in that you'll contract some of the work out. Eureka and Lander counties do have an agreement with BLM currently under the community assistance funding to do some fuel break work. So a lot of mowing type work and some hazardous fuel treatment. And with that, they either using the county equipment that they have or contracting some of the work out. And so we are supportive in your proposal if you do have to contract some of this work on the ground out. Another thing that we'll definitely take into consideration is if you are contributing funding or have in-kind services. My last example, how the county is providing some equipment of their own and their own workforce labor as part of it. We appreciate, and even though it's not a requirement of the agreement, that will help you rise to the top. And then a plan in your proposal to capture and share success stories so that we can keep telling this story and letting people know what type of opportunities there are out there, examples of work that can be done. I feel like I flew through that a little bit, but that is where I'm coming from on the BLM. So I'll just run through a couple things real quick. The BLM notice of funding opportunity, it closes March 31st. You can apply at grants.gov. The link is in the chat. If you need assistance with understanding the application, any questions in that regard, please contact Michelle, and her information is there too. I am also available to talk about project ideas. If you want to run them by me to see where we can kind of flesh it out a little better, happy to do that. I will put my information in the chat too. We are looking at awarding $500,000 in total this year, but if we have a lot of great applications because of the bill funding, there may be opportunity to increase that amount. Agreements range from 1 to 5 years, and we are looking primarily for non-federal land treatments being done. We want to get some acres accomplished and our communities fire adapted. And, oh, okay, I will make sure that gets dropped in again. And then we do not require a cost share or match or a CWPP in place for you to apply. And this is open to all tribes, county, local, city, NGOs, etc. And we will try and get this PowerPoint shared out. Thank you, Michelle. I appreciate that. All right, seeing no more questions for BLM. Right now, we will have that opportunity to ask questions again at the end. I'm going to pass it off to Dennis. Dennis, can you please introduce yourself?
Sure, absolutely. Good morning, everybody. I am Dennis Fiore, and I am the new cooperative fire specialist for Region 4, which covers the state of Nevada. So I just started my position here back in January. So there's a lot of new faces and places I need to learn. But I'm excited to be here and look forward to spending the next 15 minutes or so talking about CWDG, which most of you may or may not have heard of, but it's a pretty ambitious program. It's brand new due to the bill funding that was passed back in 2021. So we're going to take a look at it, and the intent of this presentation is not an instructional guide on how to actually apply. There's plenty of support out there where you can go to get that. It's just this is going to be an overview. So stay tuned while I share my screen. And if at any time you have questions, please drop in the chat. We'll try to address them. As you're going to see that the CWDG program is similar to what Kelsey just presented, but there's a lot of significant differences. And one of those big differences is the fact that CWDG, you're competing with everyone in the entire country, versus community fire, you're only competing with folks within the state of Nevada. So something to consider when you start to apply here. Okay. Okay, hopefully everybody sees that and we're in good shape. So like I said, new to the region, new to Nevada. So I'm learning a lot about some of the nuances with the state of Nevada, and I work closely with the Nevada Division of Forestry. So that's kind of our nexus. The Forest Service has several programs that actually awards money to the states, and in turn, the states can help support communities, fire departments through additional funding and also through equipment. So anyway, just wanted to plant that seed. And really the intent here, these two bullets, is really it was really focused program when it was created, and it looked at, reducing obviously risk around communities against wildfire. And then also too, it really wanted to look at underserved local communities and making sure that they have an opportunity to receive funding and are not left out. Sometimes underserved communities can be overlooked for various reasons to receive funding. But this program really wanted to target those areas. And also too, a couple of key differences between the BLM's program version of the BIL and then the Forest Service is that you have to have a CWPP that's less than 10 years old in place. And then also too, in order to receive funding, the community has to be at risk, and it has to be high or very high wildfire potential and low income. Okay, so there's several factors that they look at when determining who could be eligible to receive funding. And we're going to go into that in this next slide here. So think about this when you consider your organization, if this is the right fit to actually apply, because the application process can be a bit arduous, and especially for folks that are first-time users, it can be a bit daunting. However, there is support available to you to work through that. So again, it's all good stuff. We really want people to be successful and apply. We don't want you to be intimidated. We want you to reach out if you have questions. Okay, so you can see here, really we're looking at governments representing communities that are in an area with a risk of wildfires. We're targeting tribes, native corporations, nonprofits, including homeowners associations, and then state forestry agencies. For-profit organizations are not eligible. And then also two at-risk communities. If you fit in those descriptions, you absolutely can apply. And then we're talking lands here, and this is different from BLM, is where we're targeting private and state lands. We can't use this funding on federal lands. So any private lands, local governments, homeowners associations, state governments, tribes, and corporations. There's not an adjacency requirement. You don't have to be immediately adjacent to federal lands here. You just have to be identified as a community at risk. Okay, so again, I'm hammering home this at-risk community. That's really going to give you a lot of points and priority when they go through the evaluation and ranking for each of the project proposals. And again, you're a low-income community. You benefit the low-income community. You're located in areas having high or very high wildfire hazard potential. And also too, your community could be impacted by a severe disaster within the last 10 years. So if you meet one of those requirements, you are eligible. If you meet all three, that means you're going to get a higher ranking and higher score, and more likely to be selected for funding. So okay, we'll just talk about the funding. So there's $1 billion earmarked over the next 5 years. Now, I'm sure folks are aware that this actually kicked off last year. So we believe there's about $200 million annually available to award. So we are still waiting on 2022 selection announcement. So I stopped holding my breath. So any day now. And I know there's been several organizations and entities that were kind of waiting to see what happened during this first year before they would consider applying this year. And that's probably a good strategy. The thing that's really interesting about this, this past year we had over 400 applications submitted across the United States, and we're looking at awarding 75 of those applications for the tune of about $125 million. So as you can see, this is really a competitive process. All right, and so as far as per project, and I'll go into more detail later here, there's no minimum amount. The maximum amount of funding is $250 for creating or establishing a CWPP. Again, you have to have a CWPP in place in order to qualify to receive funding for any project. And then, there is a cap of $10 million for one individual project. So now there is a required match for this. There is a 10% match required if you're going to update or create a CWPP. If you're going to implement a project, a hazardous reduction fuels project, there's a 25% match. So 10% for CWPP for planning, and then for a project implementation, we require 25% match. Now, underserved communities are eligible to submit a match waiver. So if you think your community falls into that, you can ask and there will be zero match. Okay. So this goes into a little bit about the application and scoring process. And I'm going to provide you some links in the chat box where this will go into great detail on how this entire process works. So all applications must identify lead agency or organization. The lead agency must pass funds to other partners performing work as relevant. So the scoring and ranking of applications, we have review panels. I participated on the 2022 review, and those review panels are interagency. It's Forest Service, and it's also BLM and DOI, and it also includes our state partners as well. So we wanted to have as many different sets of eyes looking at the different projects. So the interesting thing about if your project is selected, you have 5 years to implement. And then there's a reporting component to this, and that's quarterly, and then annual performance and project financial reports are due. So let's see here. So you're probably thinking about what types of projects. So we have planning, i.e. creating or updating CWPPs. And then also we have wildfire prevention and mitigation education outreach programs. And then probably the more traditional, the hazard fuels reduction projects, fire adapted ecosystem restoration. So I just wanted to give you a little update here for the status of CWDG for this year as it applies to the state of Nevada, just to give you a sense of competition. In 2022, there were 11 applications from the state of Nevada. 9 of those were from the state and 2 were from the tribes. It is estimated that 75 out of the 416 submitted last year will be selected for funding. Again, about 150 million awarded. So the next call for applications for 2023 has not been released yet. We hope that it's going to happen this spring. Again, we don't want to get too far ahead until we make the announcement for 2022. So just understand that, we're all learning together. This is a brand new program. So we're still working through a lot of the processes and working out any of the kinks that you may see. So kind of references and context, kind of the next steps. Probably the two big ones, Haley and Barry. You can reach out to those two individuals. And Haley, she's a grants manager, so she's in charge of collecting all the applications and helping applicants with completing the applications for the western part of the U.S. And then there's a different process for the eastern part of the U.S. But anyway, there's a website that you can go to. You can reach out to her directly. She's really responsive. And then also too, Barry Stone from the Nevada Division of Forestry is available to answer any questions you may have about the program. And then of course, I'm always available as well too. But first line is to reach out to Haley. That's why they hired her to help specifically with this program, to help you folks. So that's kind of a snapshot of CWDG. And then one other distinction that Kelsey wanted me to highlight was the equipment. I know that's of interest to several people, whether or not you can purchase equipment. And the short answer is yes, you can purchase equipment. However, there's a guide reference that sits on the let's see if you can see that here or not. But when I drop that link into here, there's a how-to guide, and it goes into great detail about what equipment you can and cannot purchase. And basically, it's saying that the equipment you can purchase has to be used to implement a project. You cannot purchase anything related to fire suppression, such as an engine or a slip-on unit. It has to be more like around chippers, mowers, that kind of chainsaws, that kind of stuff. So I know that's a lot of information to absorb in a few minutes, but I just wanted to give folks an overview. So I'm going to stop there and see if there's any questions folks may have, or would you like to do a Q&A after, Kelsey?
We'll have a Q&A at the end, but I think you could answer this question real quick in the chat, if the match has to be funds or if it can be in kind.
It can be in kind. You can certainly do that. And the match does you cannot use federal dollars as a match. It has to be non-federal dollars.
Perfect. Thank you, Dennis. As everyone can see, there are similarities but differences. So some key things with that, like Dennis pointed out, the BLM opportunity that we're discussing is for Nevada. So as Nevadans, you're going to have less to compete against, which I think is important to emphasize, especially seeing some of those numbers from Dennis. And then BLM does not require the cost share or in-kind match. Forest Service does. BLM does not require a current CWPP. Forest Service does for projects, but you can also use Forest Service One to get money to update your CWPP, which both of ours are allowing for applications. BLM, we'd prefer you not purchase equipment as part of your grant app proposal. We'd prefer rental or contracting because of the paperwork that is required through the process. And with the BLM, we're really trying to achieve acres treated in this next 5 years through this grant opportunity. And was there any last thing that I'm missing that were kind of some big differences?
No, I think you captured it. You know, statistically speaking, you probably have higher probability of receiving an award through the BLM than through CWDG. So yeah, you have to make that determination on where you want to invest your time and energy. And then I'll just want to quickly just put in a plug. There's a few other Forest Service programs which can be available to communities and especially fire departments. And if you reach out to Barry Stone, it has to do with FEP and FFP, which is equipment from the military, and then also from other federal agencies that we can loan and give to fire departments at no cost, but there are strings attached there, obviously. And then also there's another program that we call non-fed lands, where we award monies to the state to do hazard fuel reduction projects around communities. So there's a couple of things, and Barry, can provide more specific detail. So anyway, that's all I had. Thanks.
Thank you,
I see a
Dennis, for
question there.
mentioning that. Oh, yeah.
Okay, this is a question from Don. Have the NOFO for the grant in it. So Don, if you're asking about for 2023, it has not been released yet. And then for 2022, if you wanted to look at it, if you go to the website that I plopped in the chat there, the www.fsusda managing land fire grants, the NOFO is in there. You can take a look at that. Hopefully that answered your question, Don.
Perfect. And just want to emphasize to everyone, for both opportunities, we're looking at communities at high risk from wildfire. And we're not going to weed you out because you aren't adjacent to BLM for the opportunity or adjacent to Forest Service. The priority will be for high fire risk communities for the awards. I know there's been a lot of concern. Do I have to touch BLM? Do I have to touch Forest Service for these applications? Like I mentioned, for BLM, we will probably prioritize, but you're in Nevada and it's over 70% BLM. So your chances are pretty good.
Right.
In this area that way. Kelly, I'd like to hand it over to Kelly with NDF to introduce herself and talk a little bit about how NDF can assist and what she's been up to.
Thanks, Kelsey. Good morning. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Kelly Nevels with Nevada Division Forestry. I am the Fire Adapted Nevada Coordinator. And what that is I am tasked with getting all of Nevada communities fire adapted. And I work with the NFPA and IAFC programs, which is Firewise USA and Ready, Set, Go. Firewise USA is the national recognized program to create fire adapted communities. And how this grant can help is if you have these communities that want to become fire adapted but don't have the means to do the mitigation that's required for the application, this grant is perfect for that. And for the Firewise communities that are already there that want to do more, getting them the funding they need to maintain their Firewise status. And which was interesting, Kelsey, so thank you for that, is on the infrastructure, building green belts and everything. I have so many communities that are trying to implement that and also plant trees and create canopies in their communities for that. So my program would help assist those, and in becoming Firewise USA, or just even fire adapted. They don't necessarily have to apply for that status, as there's some communities that are so rural that it's not conducive for the whole community to get together to become a Firewise community, but they could still become fire adapted. And that it would include the mitigation efforts, the infrastructure, the defensible space, etc. So that's pretty much. So how I can assist is if you have those communities that that need that assistance in the education and outreach. I work with Living with Fire as well as BLM. There are partners in this, and the Forest Service in targeting those communities, finding out what their needs are. That's where I can help facilitate that. I also work very closely with Barry and in those grants, in the WUI grants, the CWDGs, can help with the application process on some of those as well. One question I have, Kelsey, though, you said the minimum was $250,000, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. Is that a bottom line? Because it sounds like a pretty big project when I have some communities that wouldn't quite need that much amount. Are you looking for bigger scale projects?
No, so Kelly, on the notice of funding opportunity on grants.gov, it says a minimum of 250,000. That's not truly accurate. We will look at smaller projects, smaller amounts.
Great. And you talked about is these high-risk communities. That's exactly what, the FAN wants to target as well, is getting some of these rural communities the help and the assistance that they need. And that's where I can come in and help on all of that. So Kelsey, this is a great opportunity. I just want to clarify the max awards, $500,000 total that you have to give out. So it's not like you can give out 10 or 15 $500,000 awards like the CWDG, correct?
Correct. That's where BLM is a little different. CWDG, the Forest Service, is doing that on a national scale, where BLM, we've appropriated the money out to the different BLM states to then funnel into their local cooperators to really emphasize projects that we're working hand in hand in with our stakeholders. And so that's what's great, is it kind of prioritizes the money for this area, but is not looking at like 200 million. But like Dennis showed, okay, there was 150 million awarded last year through Forest Services grant, but that's going to really a small number of the total applicants. I think he said like 75 out of the 400 that applied. So here, last year we awarded in the 250,000 range for just last year, but for the lifespan, yeah, it'd be like 250,000 for the lifespan of those grants last year, but we only had 2 awardees and the number of applicants were 4. So your chances are high to get what you need to do a project around a community, especially. The thing is, we've obligated a total of 500,000 for this year, but if we have a lot of really great grants applications, then we can look at trying to expand that for this year. It's not a limit.
And what would be your time frame for the notice of awards?
So the opportunity on grants.gov closes March 31st, and then Michelle will do her review, and Michelle may be able to hop in to say when we would be looking at the awards.
Okay, thanks, Kels.
Let's just go straight to questions. Kelly's just itching to get these questions going. So I will, let's go back to questions then. Okay, for questions, Michelle, are you hearing me?
Yes, I am. Hello.
Michelle, when do you think that we would be awarding for this NOFO for BLM?
That's a great question. So I know I definitely can't give you a specific date. But what I can tell you is that what we included, I'm not sure if this shows up on the NOFO itself, but we were aiming to have all the awards and all the programs by September 1st. So now that'll just depend on, which ones we got in sooner and that we're reviewing those first. So it just, it's going to depend. And we're also still looking at getting fully staffed. So that also impacts, we have a lot of factors that will impact the time frame of this for this year. So we just ask that you be patient. And if you have questions along the way, please don't hesitate to reach out. Likewise, we will be likely reaching out to you as we're reviewing these. So, as I'm reviewing budgets and things like that, I may have questions and I will be certainly reaching out. One thing I'll just add, if you don't mind, is 2 things to please be aware of and be sure of when applying is make sure that you have an active SAM.gov status, and also that you'll need to register if you're not already active in the ASAP.gov site. So, and again, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out and we can send you instructions on how to do either one of those. That's all.
Thank you, Michelle. Okay, I'm going to open it up to questions to the whole group. You feel like dropping it in the chat, that's fine, or you can turn your camera on and speak.
Looks like Don Pelt has his hand up.
All right, Don. Let's unmute you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right, I have a few questions. The first being, we're looking at the Department of Energy grant as well. These, if we apply under the BLM or NDF, we're not going to run into a supplanting issue, are we?
Michelle, can you take that? Or
You can, yeah, just because, I'll speak from CWDG, just because you applied for that doesn't preclude you from applying for other federal grants.
Okay, and then next would be on the eligibility for this, would it be compatible with the NV Energy contracts for fire departments?
And I can't speak to that. I'm not familiar with that the energy grant. So
that's going to have to be pretty specific to what project you're doing. I would need to know more details about what your proposal is.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
and then
Kelsey, I have a question. For the scoring, I guess this is more towards Michelle. Is there a priority for communities that are fire-wise and ready, set, go?
So I did not list that as one of my rise to the top things. There's not going to be a priority for it, but it's something that will definitely be taken into consideration.
Great, thank you.
so Carol Lynn has her hand up.
Okay, Michelle was talking about two accounts or two memberships that we had to have for this BLM grant. One was the sam.gov, and what was the other one?
It is ASAP. And that one, I mean, you could hold off until you get through the merit review process. We won't be able to issue an award without having that. Yeah, so that's the difference. But the sam.gov, actually, I think you could even get through if you don't have access, but that one you don't want to wait on. That one takes a while unless they've worked through their issues, but it can sometimes delay processes.
Okay.
I think you can apply without it. I'd have to double check on that. So if you're able to apply and you don't have it, just continue to apply, but then just know that as soon as you submit that application, that's not a bad thing to go in there and start that process.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Michelle, I have another question. Could we do a grouped application for, say, like, let's say I was going to do Lyon County. I had 3 communities in their combination. If I was creating fire adapted communities, could I do a group?
A group application?
Yeah.
Is it one single entity that is the grant, like the grantee? So it'd be, could you give me the example?
So I was just thinking out loud, but what if I did it under, say, like a fire district, like for instance, just say Central Lyon County, just because it's right there and they have so many communities that need it. And they did the grant. Could I spread it out under, instead of one project, it would be like 3-4 different communities, something like that?
Yes, definitely, Kelly. If you're applying as the Lyon Fire District, then you can have multiple projects. This isn't, when you apply with your proposal, it's not just one item. We've had Lander and Eureka, they applied to do fuel break work, and that's being, done across the counties. And it also included education events, so it's not we're just doing this one chipper day. in this
Okay, gotcha.
community.
Gotcha. And Miss Carol in Humboldt County, that's good for you.
I gotcha.
So somebody has their hand up and the name just says iPhone. So go ahead, iPhone.
I apologize for that. This is Chris Barton of Story County. Just had a question. A lot of the hazard fuels, community protection grants, and Western States WU grants, things like that, they require us to give a good project proposal with a polygon of the area. If we were to do more of a landscape scale, widespread area with highlighted areas, would that suffice for this, or are you guys looking for an exact polygon of the area that's going to be served? Obviously, a lot of that's going to come into your project narrative and things, but if it was to be more of a widespread usage of this, is that acceptable?
That suffices for BLM.
And CWDG as well. You just think about it in terms of your project area, right? It could be at the watershed scale level. It could be huge. I mean, it's all in how you describe it, right?
I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right. I'm not seeing any hands. Are you, Dennis? You're good at spotting them.
No, not at the moment. I think we're okay. Let me see.
All right. My contact information is in the chat. If you guys have additional questions, you can reach out. I will get the PowerPoint from Dennis, and I will try and get this shared out across our partners through our FMOs and district mitigation specialists and Forest Service and NDF partners, along with a recording of this Q&A session. So please share far and wide. We want to do great things in Nevada and make Nevada able to live with fire. Living with fire's whole message. Let's become resilient and fire adapted. So thank you everyone for attending. Really appreciate the interest.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thanks, Kelsey.